The phone vibrated against my thigh at 3 in the morning, pulling me from restless sleep. Not my phone. The screen glowed beneath our white duvet, casting shadows across the ceiling of our Georgetown townhouse. Marcus was snoring softly beside me, one arm thrown over his face, the picture of innocent slumber. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it like this video, it means a lot to us. Now back to the story. I should have woken him, should have handed it over with a sleepy laugh. Honey, your phone fell out of your pocket again. Instead, my fingers closed around the device, smooth and unfamiliar. Wrong weight, wrong case. This wasn't the iPhone 14 I'd seen him scrolling through at dinner. This was a burner phone. My training kicked in before conscious thought could stop it. I slid from bed, feet silent on hardwood floors, the same way I'd moved through countless operations. The bathroom door clicked shut with barely a whisper. I sat on the edge of our marble tub, the phone heavy in my hands like evidence at a crime scene. Because that's what it was, wasn't it? Evidence. The lock screen showed a message preview from a contact saved only as M. Transfer confirmed. Next shipment Thursday. Make sure the route is clean. My heart hammered against my ribs. 10 years with the FBI, 5 of them in financial crimes, and I'd never felt this particular brand of cold dread. This was the language of my world. The world Marcus knew nothing about. The world I'd carefully kept separate from our marriage, from our Sunday morning pancakes and his terrible jokes, and the way he always left his socks on the bedroom floor. Marcus Chen, my husband of 3 years, high school physics teacher, marathon runner, the man who cried at every Pixar movie and volunteered at the youth center every Saturday. The man who had proposed to me on a hiking trail in Shenandoah, ring tucked in a granola bar wrapper because he'd been too nervous to wait for the summit. The man whose second phone was receiving encrypted messages about shipments and transfers at 3 in the morning. I pressed the home button. Face ID flashed. Failed. Of course. I stared at my reflection in the black screen, my own face foreign in the dim light. Brown eyes too wide, black hair tangled from sleep, the small scar above my left eyebrow from a takedown in Baltimore 2 years ago. An injury I'd explained away as a cycling accident. So many lies between us now. His and mine. The rational part of my brain. The part trained at Quantico. Cataloged facts. Burner phone. Encrypted communications. Reference to transfers and shipments. Clean routes meant avoiding law enforcement. This was operational language, criminal operational language. The wife in me wanted to march back to bed, shake him awake, demand explanations that would make sense of this. There had to be an explanation. Marcus taught kinematics to teenagers. He graded papers at our kitchen table. He'd spent last Tuesday evening helping Mr. Rodriguez next door fix his lawnmower. I set the phone on the counter and stared at it like it might bite. My own phone sat on the bedroom nightstand, filled with encrypted files on Operation Tidewater, the case that had consumed the last 8 months of my life. A massive money laundering operation funneling drug proceeds through a network of shell companies and cryptocurrency exchanges. We were close to cracking it, so close I could taste it. My section chief, Director Patricia Morrison, had assigned me as lead investigator. 6 other agents on the task force. Hundreds of thousands of documents. Financial records that painted a picture of sophisticated criminal enterprise spanning 3 states and reaching into the dark web. And now this phone, warm from lying against my sleeping husband's body, speaking the same language as the criminals I was hunting. Coincidence was a word we didn't believe in at the Bureau. I picked up the burner again, careful to hold it by the edges. Old habits. If I was going to examine it, I needed to preserve any forensic evidence. The thought made my stomach turn. I was treating my husband like a suspect. Worse, I was treating evidence in my own home like I might need to establish chain of custody. The phone buzzed again. Another message from M. Worried about the Fed activity, heard they're closing in. We need to accelerate timeline. Fed activity. They knew. Whoever was on the other end of this message knew about law enforcement interest. Knew enough to be worried. knew enough to change their timeline. I thought about Operation Tidewater, about the wiretaps we had in place, the surveillance teams tracking known associates. We'd been careful, so careful. But maybe not careful enough. Maybe they had someone inside. Maybe they had. The bathroom tiles felt cold under my feet as I stood. My reflection in the mirror looked older than my 32 years. The woman staring back at me wore a thin tank top and pajama shorts, looking vulnerable and small. Nothing like FBI Special Agent Sarah Chen. The woman who'd taken down 3 major fraud rings, who'd testified in federal court a dozen times, who'd earned commendations for her work. Right now, I was just a wife holding her husband's secrets. I needed to think like an agent. I needed to document this. But first, I needed to understand what I was dealing with. My mind raced through possibilities, each more disturbing than the last. Could Marcus be involved with my case? Could he have known all along what I did for a living? I'd been so careful with operational security, used my maiden name professionally, kept my work life completely separate. We'd met at a coffee shop near American University 4 years ago. I'd been researching a target. He'd been grading papers. He'd spilled his latte. I'd handed him napkins. He'd made a joke about Newton's laws of motion applied to liquid dynamics. It had seemed random, genuine, real. Had it been? The thought that our entire relationship might be constructed, might be part of something larger, made my chest tighten. I forced myself to breathe slowly, using the techniques I'd learned for staying calm during operations. Panic was useless. Facts were what mattered. I pulled out my personal phone and took photos of Marcus's burner. The screen, the case, the messages visible without unlocking it. My hands were steady despite everything, training overriding emotion. Then I opened the encrypted messaging app I used for work emergencies. Director Morrison needed to know about this. But my finger hovered over her contact, unable to press down. The moment I sent this message, everything changed. Marcus would become an official person of interest. Our home would be searched, our marriage dissected by investigators who saw patterns where I still desperately wanted to see innocence. And I would have to recuse myself from any investigation. I would become a witness, possibly even a suspect. After all, I was his wife. I had access to his life. If he was involved in something criminal, they would have to consider my potential involvement. The irony was brutal. I'd spent years investigating financial crimes, following money trails, building cases. And now the evidence was literally in my bed. I closed the messaging app. Not yet. First, I needed more information. I needed to understand what I was looking at. Maybe there was an explanation. Maybe this was all some terrible misunderstanding. Even as I thought it, I knew I was bargaining. The first stage of grief. I heard movement from the bedroom. Marcus shifting in bed, probably reaching for me. Panic spiked. I shoved the burner phone into the pocket of my pajama shorts and flushed the toilet, running water in the sink to cover the sound. When I emerged, Marcus was sitting up, hair sticking up on one side, eyes half closed. "Sarah? You okay, babe?" His voice was rough with sleep, concerned, the same voice that had whispered "I love you" 1,000 times, the same voice that had talked me through bad days and celebrated good ones, the same voice that might belong to a criminal. "Fine," I managed, climbing back into bed. The phone felt like a bomb in my pocket. Just couldn't sleep. He reached for me, pulling me against his chest. I could feel his heartbeat, steady and slow, innocent. His hand traced lazy circles on my shoulder, the gesture so familiar it hurt. "Big day tomorrow?" he asked. My mind went blank for a moment before I remembered. Thursday. I'd mentioned at dinner that Thursday was an important meeting for work. I'd kept it vague, the way I always did. Administrative consulting, I'd told him when we first met. The kind of boring government work that made people's eyes glaze over when you tried to explain it. "Yeah," I whispered. "Really big." "You'll be great. You always are." He pressed a kiss to my forehead. Get some sleep. He was asleep again within minutes, his breathing deep and even. I lay rigid beside him, the phone burning against my hip, my mind spinning through scenarios and possibilities, and the wreckage of everything I'd thought I knew. Thursday. The message had said, "Next shipment Thursday," the same day as our planned raid on 3 locations tied to Operation Tidewater. The same day we expected to arrest 5 key members of the money laundering network. It couldn't be a coincidence. I waited until I was certain Marcus was deep asleep, then slipped out of bed again. This time I went to my home office, the small converted bedroom where I sometimes worked on unclassified reports. My laptop held nothing sensitive, just the kind of generic documents that matched my cover story. But I had my work phone in my purse, locked in the biometric safe hidden in my closet. I retrieved it, hands shaking now that I was alone. The bureau phone powered on with its familiar encrypted boot screen. I scrolled through my recent case files, looking at Operation Tidewater with new eyes. The network we were investigating moved money through a series of shell companies, front businesses that looked legitimate on paper. Among them, 3 cryptocurrency exchanges, 2 import-export companies, a chain of car washes, and an educational consulting firm. Educational consulting. My blood ran cold. Marcus had mentioned consulting work. Side projects, he'd called them. Helping develop online physics curriculum for a company called Vertex Education Solutions. Extra money to save for the house we wanted to buy, the trips we wanted to take. I'd never thought to look closely at Vertex. Why would I? It was my husband's legitimate side work. Except now I pulled up the company on my work database, and there it was. Vertex Education Solutions, incorporated in Delaware. Parent company traced back through 2 holding companies to a network we'd been investigating for 8 months. The room spun. I gripped the edge of my desk, forcing myself to stay calm, to think clearly. This could still be innocent. Lots of companies had complicated ownership structures. Marcus could have no idea who really owned Vertex. But the phone, the messages, the timing. I spent the next 2 hours going through everything I had on Operation Tidewater, cross-referencing it with everything I knew about Marcus's life, his schedule, his side work, the business trips he'd taken in the last year. 3 trips to Miami, 2 to Los Angeles, 1 to Seattle, all cities where we had identified nodes in the money laundering network. Research conferences, he'd said, meeting with other educators. I'd kissed him goodbye at the airport, never questioning, never doubting. By 5 in the morning, I had a preliminary timeline that made my hands shake. Marcus's trips corresponded almost exactly with major movement of funds through the network. The timing was too perfect, the locations too precise. Either my husband was the unluckiest man alive, accidentally stumbling into association with criminals through pure chance, or he was part of it, deliberately, knowingly. I wanted to throw up. Instead, I pulled up the surveillance logs from our investigation. We had 3 targets under periodic physical surveillance. I scrolled through the photos, looking for anything, any connection. And there it was. A photo from 6 weeks ago, taken outside a restaurant in Arlington. 3 men meeting for lunch. We'd identified 2 of them, Daniel Price and Marcus Sullivan, both connected to the money laundering network. The 3rd man had been a mystery. His face partially obscured by sunglasses, body language suggesting he was uncomfortable, nervous. I enhanced the image, something I'd done a dozen times before without recognition sparking. But now, knowing what I was looking for, I saw it. The set of his shoulders, the way he held his coffee cup, the silver watch on his left wrist, the one I'd given him for our 2nd anniversary. The 3rd man was Marcus, my husband. Having lunch with 2 criminals we'd been investigating. 6 weeks ago, while I'd been at the office building the case that would bring them down. I closed the laptop before I could see more. There would be time for thorough investigation later. Right now, I needed to decide what to do. The rational choice was clear. Report everything immediately. Turn over the phone. Let the professionals handle it, even if it meant stepping away from the case, from my career, possibly from my life as I knew it. But something held me back. Maybe it was foolish hope. Maybe it was love. Maybe it was just the final denial before acceptance. I needed to understand. I needed to know why. Was he coerced? Threatened? Was there something I was missing? Some explanation that would make this make sense? Or was everything I believed about Marcus Chen a lie? Had he married me knowing exactly who I was, using me for information, access, cover? The thought made me physically ill. The sky was lightening outside, early dawn turning our street gray. In 2 hours, Marcus's alarm would go off. He'd wake up, kiss me good morning, make his terrible coffee that was always too strong. He'd complain about his first period class and quiz me on his lesson plans. He'd be the man I'd married. And I would have to sit across from him at breakfast, knowing what I knew, hiding what I'd found, playing a role just as convincing as the one he might be playing. I heard footsteps above me. Marcus was awake. I had minutes to compose myself, to bury everything I'd learned behind the mask of normalcy. I'd done it before, gone undercover, pretended to be someone else. But this was different. This was my life. I returned the work phone to the safe, secured everything, and went upstairs. Marcus was in the kitchen, and the coffee maker was already gurgling. He wore his old Georgetown sweatshirt and flannel pants, looking rumpled and domestic, and so utterly normal that my heart cracked a little more. "Hey, you," he said, smiling. "You're up early." "Couldn't sleep," I said, which was true enough. I poured myself coffee from the pot, noting the way my hand didn't shake. All those years of training paying off. Nervous about today. The big meeting? He came up behind me, wrapping his arms around my waist. I felt the phone in his pocket press against my back. His phone. The real one. Not the burner that was now hidden in my bathroom vanity behind tampons and face wash. "Yeah," I said. I turned in his arms, studying his face, looking for signs of deception, of guilt, of anything that would give him away. But he just looked like Marcus. Warm brown eyes, slight stubble he'd shaved before work, the tiny scar on his chin from a childhood bike accident. "You'll crush it," he said. "You always do. Whatever it is you actually do in that boring government job." He was teasing, the same gentle mockery he'd used for years about my vague career description. Had he known all along? Was this part of the act? Or was he as much in the dark as I'd been 12 hours ago? "What about you?" I asked, trying to keep my voice casual. "Any big plans today?" "Just the usual. School until 3, then I promised the kids at the youth center I'd help with their science fair projects." He released me to grab his own coffee. "Oh, and I might meet up with Dan for drinks after. You remember Dan from the marathon training group?" Dan, Daniel Price. The man from the surveillance photo. The man connected to millions in laundered money. "Sure," I said. "I remember Dan." "Unless you want me home early?" Marcus asked. "Since you have your big day?" This was it. The perfect opportunity to find out more. To see where he went, who he met, what he did when he thought I wasn't watching. But it also meant letting him walk into whatever meeting was planned for Thursday. The day of the shipment. The day of our raid. "No, that's fine," I heard myself say. "I'll probably be working late anyway." He kissed my forehead, and I closed my eyes, memorizing the feel of it. Because this might be one of the last normal moments we ever had. After today, after I made my decision about what to do with what I knew, everything would change. "I love you," he said, simple and clear. "I love you too," I replied, and meant it. That was the worst part. Despite everything, despite the evidence and the photos and the messages and the terrible pattern emerging from the data, I still loved him. And I was going to have to choose between that love and everything else I believed in. Marcus headed upstairs to get ready for work, whistling off key like he always did. I stood in our kitchen, surrounded by the life we'd built together. the coffee mugs from our honeymoon in Italy, the photo on the fridge of us at the Cherry Blossom Festival, the grocery list on the counter in his handwriting, reminding me to pick up milk. Normal. It all looked so normal. I pulled the burner phone from its hiding place and photographed everything I could without unlocking it. Then I opened a secure note on my personal phone and began documenting every detail, the timeline, the connections, the evidence. Because whatever happened next, whatever choice I made, I needed to have the facts, needed to be able to show that I'd acted properly, that I hadn't compromised the investigation, that I'd put duty above personal interest, even if it destroyed my marriage, even if it destroyed me. The phone buzzed in my hand. Another message from M, visible on the lock screen. Confirmed for Thursday night, 2000 hours, usual location, make sure you're not followed. This is the big one. 2000 hours, 8 p.m., military time. The formality of it suggested organization, discipline. This wasn't amateur hour. This was professional. And Marcus was right in the middle of it. I heard the shower turn off upstairs. In 15 minutes, he'd come down, kiss me goodbye, head off to teach physics to unsuspecting teenagers, living his double life with apparent ease. How long had he been doing this? How long had we both been lying to each other? I'd married him while working undercover, keeping my real job secret. He'd married me while doing… what? What exactly was his role in all this? I needed answers. And I had less than 12 hours to figure out how to get them without destroying everything. The morning sun streamed through our kitchen windows, warm and golden, illuminating the breakfast bar where we'd shared 1,000 meals. Everything looked the same as it did yesterday, but everything had changed. I returned the burner to its hiding place, composed my features into a mask of normalcy, and prepared to play the most important role of my career. Not as an FBI agent, not as an investigator. As Marcus Chen's unsuspecting wife who knew nothing about burner phones or money laundering, or the fact that in 12 hours, the carefully constructed walls between my two lives were going to come crashing down. Marcus appeared in the doorway, dressed for work, backpack slung over his shoulder. "You okay, babe? You look pale." I smiled, and it felt like my face might crack from the effort. "Just tired. Didn't sleep well." "Well, tonight we'll order in, open some wine, and you can tell me all about your boring meeting." He crossed to me, cupped my face in his hands. "Sound good?" "Sounds perfect," I lied. He kissed me once more and headed for the door. I listened to his car start, watched through the window as he backed out of the driveway, disappeared around the corner. Going to teach physics, or going to meet with criminals, or both. I had 8 hours until Thursday's operation went live. 8 hours to decide whether to report what I'd found, whether to trust the system, whether to trust my own judgment about the man I'd married. 8 hours to choose between love and duty. The burner phone sat hidden in my bathroom, its secrets locked away. Marcus's secrets, my secrets. All of us playing roles, wearing masks, pretending to be people we weren't. I picked up my work phone and stared at Director Morrison's contact information. One call, that's all it would take. One call, and the machinery of justice would grind into motion, warrants would be issued, surveillance would be established, my marriage would become evidence. My finger hovered over the screen, unable to make the choice that would define everything that came after. Outside, the neighborhood was waking up, Mrs. Park walking her terrier, the Johnsons loading their kids into the minivan, normal people living normal lives, untouched by the shadows that had invaded mine. I thought about what Marcus had said. Make sure you're not followed. This is the big one. Whatever was happening Thursday night, it was significant. Major enough that they were worried about federal attention. Major enough that they needed to accelerate their timeline. Major enough that if I didn't act, if I let my personal feelings compromise my professional judgment, people could get hurt. Money could disappear. Criminals could escape justice. But if I did act, If I made that call, I would be betraying the man I loved, possibly sending him to prison, definitely destroying the life we'd built. The sun climbed higher, marking time I didn't have. Thursday was here, and tonight, one way or another, the truth would come out. I just had to decide whether I wanted to control how it happened or let fate make the choice for me. My phone rang. Work phone. Director Morrison's name on the screen. My heart stopped. Did she know? Had someone seen something? Was this the moment where everything spiraled out of my control? I answered, keeping my voice steady. Agent Chen. Sarah, we have a situation, Morrison said, her voice tight with stress. Someone leaked information about Thursday's operation. Our targets know we're coming. We need to move up the timeline. We're executing the raid in 4 hours. 4 hours. Not 12. 4. I'll be there in 30 minutes, I said automatically. Good. And Sarah? We think the leak came from someone close to the investigation. We're looking at everyone, even our own people. Trust no one. The line went dead. I stood in my kitchen, holding 2 phones now. My work phone in one hand, Marcus's burner in the other. 4 hours until the raid. And my husband, who I'd just watched drive away to what he thought was a normal day, was somewhere out there, part of a network that somehow knew exactly what we were planning. Trust no one, Morrison had said. I looked at Marcus's phone one more time, at the messages that had shattered my world, at the evidence that could put him away for years. Then I made my choice, the only choice I could make, and still live with myself. I called Morrison back. Director, before we proceed, there's something I need to tell you about. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, like this video, it means a lot to us. Now back to the story. Director, before we proceed, there's something I need to tell you about, I said, my voice steady despite the earthquake happening inside my chest. I found a burner phone, in my home. It belongs to Marcus. The silence on the other end stretched so long I thought the call had dropped. Then Morrison's voice came back, cold and professional. Your husband, Marcus Chen? Yes, ma'am. Where are you right now? At home. He left for work 20 minutes ago. Don't move. Don't touch anything else. I'm sending agents to your location. You're officially off Operation Tidewater as of this moment. Consider yourself a witness, Agent Chen. Possibly more. The line went dead. I stood frozen in my kitchen, the morning sun now feeling accusatory rather than warm. I'd made the call. There was no taking it back. In minutes, my home would be swarmed by my colleagues, my life torn apart by the same investigative techniques I'd used on countless others. The irony wasn't lost on me. 23 minutes later, 3 black SUVs pulled up outside. I watched through the window as agents emerged, including Morrison herself. She'd come personally. That told me everything about how serious this was. I opened the door before they could knock. Morrison's expression was unreadable, professional mask firmly in place. Behind her stood Agent Marcus Webb and Agent Jennifer Torres, both from my own task force, people I'd worked with for years. Now they looked at me like I was a suspect. Agent Chen, Morrison said formally, we need to secure the premises and obtain your statement. You understand this is procedure. I understand, I said, stepping aside. They moved through my home with practiced efficiency. Webb went straight for the bathroom where I'd hidden the burner phone. I'd documented its location in my preliminary report, sent moments before they arrived. Torres began photographing everything, while 2 other agents I didn't recognize started a systematic search. Morrison guided me to my own living room, sat me on my own couch. Start from the beginning. Everything, I told her. The phone vibrating against my leg at 3 a.m., the messages, the timeline I'd constructed matching Marcus's trips with fund movements, the surveillance photo I'd enhanced, the connection to Vertex Education Solutions. Every detail, clinical and precise, like I was reporting on a stranger's case. Morrison listened without interruption, taking notes on her tablet. When I finished, she looked at me with something that might have been sympathy. "You should have called immediately." "I know." "You compromised the investigation by waiting." "I know." "You could face disciplinary action, possibly criminal charges if we determine you knowingly withheld evidence." "I know." My voice cracked slightly on the second word. "But I reported it as soon as I processed what I was seeing. I didn't warn him, didn't tip him off. I made the call." Morrison studied me for a long moment. "The leak that prompted us to move up the timeline? It came through encrypted channels we've been monitoring. The message went out at 2:47 a.m. 3 minutes before that phone in your bathroom received its first message." My blood ran cold. "You think Marcus is the leak?" "We think he's connected to whoever is, which means everything about your marriage, your home life, your operational security is now under review." She leaned forward. "Sarah, I need you to be completely honest with me. Is there any chance Marcus knows what you really do?" I thought about 3 years of marriage, the careful lies, the cover story I'd maintained so meticulously. "No, I've been careful, beyond careful." "Then explain how your husband ended up working for a front company connected to the exact network you're investigating. Explain the timing. Explain the coincidence." "I can't," I whispered, "because I couldn't." The math didn't add up unless one of two things was true. Either Marcus had deliberately sought me out, knowing who I was, or I was the unluckiest person alive. The FBI didn't believe in coincidence. Webb emerged from the bathroom, the burner phone sealed in an evidence bag. "Got it. Also found this." He held up another evidence bag containing a small notebook. "Hidden in the tank of the toilet. Appears to be some kind of code. Numbers, dates, locations." I felt like I was watching my life disintegrate in real time. That toilet tank had a constant leak. Marcus had been meaning to fix it for months. He must have known I'd never look there. How much of our life had been a stage set? How much had been real? Morrison's phone buzzed. She glanced at it, her expression tightening. "We have a positive ID on Marcus Chen's location. He's not at school. He's at a warehouse in Southeast D.C., meeting with Daniel Price and Marcus Sullivan." The names from the surveillance photo, the targets we'd planned to arrest in 4 hours. "We're moving in now," Morrison said, standing. "Agent Chen, you're staying here with Agent Torres. Do not leave this location. Do not contact anyone. Are we clear?" "Crystal." She moved toward the door, then paused. "For what it's worth, Sarah, I believe you didn't know, but believing it and proving it are different things. Let's hope we can prove it." Then she was gone, taking Webb and the other agents with her. Torres remained, settling into the armchair across from me, her expression neutral but not unkind. "Want coffee?" I asked absurdly. "Sure." We sat in silence, drinking coffee in my kitchen while my colleagues raided a warehouse where my husband was apparently meeting with money launderers. The surreal quality of it all made me wonder if I was still asleep, if this was just an elaborate nightmare. Torres's radio crackled. "We have eyes on the location, multiple subjects visible, preparing to breach." My heart hammered. Somewhere across the city, a tactical team was preparing to arrest Marcus, to put him in handcuffs, to read him his rights, to take him away from me forever. "Breach, breach, breach," the radio announced. I closed my eyes, unable to stop imagining it. The door crashing open, agents flooding in, weapons drawn. Marcus's face, shocked and terrified, realizing his world was ending. "Subjects secured. We have 4 in custody. Price, Sullivan, Chen, and an unknown male. Warehouse contains approximately 2 million in cash and substantial documentation." 2 million. Documentation. Marcus standing in the middle of it all. Torres was watching me carefully. "You okay?" "No," I said honestly. "I'm really not." My phone rang. Not my work phone, my personal phone. I looked at the screen. Mom calling. I let it go to voicemail. How was I supposed to tell my mother that the son-in-law she adored was a criminal, that the man we'd welcomed into our family was being arrested? An hour passed. Then two. Torres received updates through her radio but shared nothing with me. I was on the outside now, no longer part of the team. Just the wife. Just a witness. Just someone whose judgment had been catastrophically compromised. Finally, Morrison returned. She looked exhausted, her usual composed demeanor showing cracks. She dismissed Torres with a nod and sat across from me at my kitchen table. Marcus is in custody, she said without preamble, along with 3 others. The warehouse contained evidence of money laundering, drug trafficking, and fraud. We're talking about a 20-year case, Sarah. Minimum. 20 years. The number hit me like a physical blow. But, Morrison continued, and something in her tone made me look up sharply. Something doesn't add up. Marcus is claiming he's been working undercover. Says he's been gathering evidence. Says he's been reporting to someone in law enforcement. My breath caught. What? He won't give us a name. Says he can't compromise his handler. But he knew details about our operation that he shouldn't have known. Details that suggest someone on the inside has been feeding him information. Morrison's eyes bore into mine. Someone who knew exactly what we were investigating. The implication hung in the air between us. You think I was his source? Were you? No. The word came out fierce, certain. I never told him anything. I stopped, thinking. Wait. He said he was working undercover? For who? That's what we're trying to determine. He had FBI credentials on him, Sarah. Real ones. Not forgeries. Real credentials with a badge number that doesn't exist in any of our databases. The world tilted. That's not possible. And yet, here we are. Morrison pulled out her tablet, showed me a photo. Marcus, in handcuffs, looking directly at the camera. In the photo, he held up a badge and credentials that looked identical to mine. There's more, Morrison said. The notebook we found? It's a detailed log of transactions, meetings, and movements within the laundering network. The kind of intelligence that could only come from someone deep inside the operation. The kind of intelligence that's worth its weight in gold. I don't understand. Neither do we. But Marcus is insisting on speaking with someone specific before he'll explain anything further. He wants to speak with you. My mouth went dry. Me? You. Alone. He says you're the only one he'll talk to. Morrison leaned back. Obviously that's not happening. You're compromised 6 ways from Sunday. But I need to know, is there any reason he would specifically want to talk to you? Anything you haven't told me? I thought about 3 years of marriage, quiet breakfasts and loud arguments, making love and making plans, building a life together, brick by brick, moment by moment. If it had all been a lie, if Marcus had been playing me this entire time, wouldn't I have seen something? Wouldn't some part of me have known? No, I said, there's nothing. Morrison sighed. Then we have a problem. Because either your husband is a criminal who somehow got his hands on real FBI credentials, or he's an agent who's been operating without oversight, running an unauthorized undercover operation. Either way, this is a nightmare. Can I see him? The words escaped before I could stop them. Absolutely not. Please, if he'll only talk to me, maybe I can get answers. Maybe I can... You can't, Sarah. You're too close to this. Your judgment is compromised. If Marcus is dirty, you're a potential accomplice. If he's somehow legitimate, you're still a security risk. Either way, you're out. I wanted to argue, but she was right. Everything I'd been trained to do, every protocol I'd sworn to uphold, said I needed to step back. Let the professionals handle it. Trust the system. But this wasn't just a case anymore. This was my life. Torres appeared in the doorway. Director, you need to see this. Now. We followed her to my home office where she'd set up a laptop. On screen was surveillance footage from the warehouse raid. Torres scrubbed through it, stopped on a specific frame. There, just before the breach, Marcus could be seen palming something small, tucking it into his sock. The motion was quick, practiced, easy to miss. "What is that?" Morrison demanded. "We don't know yet, but whatever it is, he didn't want us to find it." Torres looked at me. "Your husband knows tradecraft. That's not something a physics teacher learns by accident." The evidence was mounting. Marcus wasn't who I thought he was, but was he a criminal or something else entirely? My work phone buzzed. An encrypted message from a number I didn't recognize. I showed it to Morrison before opening it. "Go ahead," she said. I opened the message. 5 words. "Ask Sarah about Operation Lighthouse." Morrison frowned. "Mean anything to you?" "No, I've never heard of Operation Lighthouse." But even as I said it, something tugged at my memory. A conversation months ago, before Marcus and I were married. He'd made a joke about lighthouses, about how they guided people home through dangerous waters. I'd thought it was just random banter. Had it been a message? A signal I'd missed? Morrison was already on her phone, speaking rapidly to someone at headquarters. "I need everything we have on any operation codenamed Lighthouse, current or archived. Pull all classified files. Yes, immediately." She hung up, turned back to me. "If this is real, if there's an operation we don't know about, we have a serious problem. It would mean someone is running unsanctioned investigations, someone with enough juice to create credentials and operate in shadow." "Who could do that?" I asked. "Very few people," Morrison said grimly, "and none of them should be." My personal phone rang again, this time an unknown number. I looked at Morrison. She nodded. I answered on speaker. "Agent Chen?" The voice was male, older, with an accent I couldn't quite place. "I understand you've had quite a morning." "Who is this?" "Someone who's been watching your career with great interest. You're very good at your job, Sarah, perhaps too good, which is why we chose your husband for this particular assignment." Chose. The word hit like a bullet. Morrison leaned forward. "This is FBI Director Patricia Morrison. Identify yourself immediately." A soft laugh. "Director Morrison, a pleasure. Though I'm afraid I can't identify myself, not yet. But I can tell you this. Marcus Chen has been working for us for 5 years, long before he married Agent Chen. His mission was to infiltrate the money laundering network and gather intelligence." "Us who?" Morrison demanded. "That's classified above your pay grade, Director, but you'll receive confirmation within the hour. In the meantime, I suggest you treat Agent Chen, both of them, with appropriate care. They've both served their country admirably, even if they didn't know they were serving alongside each other." The line went dead. Morrison and I stared at each other. "That's not possible," she said. "No agency runs an operation like this without coordination, without oversight, without—" Her phone rang. She answered, listened, her face going pale. "I understand." "Yes, sir. Right away, sir." She looked at me, and for the first time since I'd known her, Morrison looked shaken. "That was the deputy director. He's confirmed Operation Lighthouse is real. It's a joint task force between FBI and another agency he can't name. Marcus Chen has been an asset for 5 years. His credentials are legitimate." The room spun. "He's really FBI?" "Not exactly. He's more of a consultant, long-term deep cover, and apparently neither of you were supposed to know about each other." "But the timing," I said. "Our meeting, our marriage, that can't be coincidence." Morrison's expression turned grave. "It wasn't. According to the deputy director, when they realized Marcus Chen was getting close to someone in law enforcement, they ran a background check. When they found out you were FBI working financial crimes, they saw an opportunity. They encouraged the relationship, facilitated it. They what? My voice came out strangled. They wanted Marcus to have cover. A wife with a boring government job was perfect. What they didn't account for was that you'd be assigned to investigate the same network he was infiltrating, and they certainly didn't plan on you being the lead investigator. I felt sick. So our entire relationship was manufactured? No, Morrison said, but she didn't sound convinced. The deputy director says Marcus didn't know you were FBI. His handlers kept that from him, wanted him to believe your cover story. They thought it would make the relationship more authentic. And me? Did they know? Did my superiors know I was married to an asset? Morrison's silence was answer enough. Oh my God, I breathed. Everyone knew, everyone except us. The betrayal was so complete, so total, that I couldn't even process it. The bureau I'd dedicated my life to had manipulated me, had used my relationship as cover for an operation I wasn't read into, had let me investigate my own husband. I want to see him, I said. Now. Sarah. Now, director. Or I walk out of here and start making phone calls to journalists who would love to hear about unsanctioned operations and domestic manipulation. It was a bluff. I'd never compromised national security like that, but Morrison didn't know that. She studied me for a long moment, then nodded. Fine, but I'm coming with you. The FBI field office felt different as I walked through it an hour later. People I'd worked with for years wouldn't meet my eyes. They knew. They'd all known, and no one had told me. Marcus was in interview room 3, still in handcuffs. He looked up when I entered, and the relief on his face was so raw it hurt. Sarah. Don't, I said, cutting him off. Morrison stood by the door, observing. Just tell me the truth, all of it. He took a breath. 5 years ago, I was recruited by a joint task force. They needed someone to go deep into a money laundering network. I'd been teaching at a school where one of the target's kids attended. They approached me, offered me a way to serve my country. I said yes. And me? Our meeting at the coffee shop? Real, he said emphatically. I swear, Sarah, that was real. Yes, they encouraged me to pursue you. They said having a stable relationship would improve my cover. But the way I felt about you, the way I fell in love with you, that wasn't an assignment. That was real. You've been lying to me for 3 years. I didn't have a choice. The operation required complete cover. If you'd known, if anyone had known, it could have compromised everything, gotten people killed. I'm FBI, Marcus. I could have helped you. I didn't know that. His voice rose, frustrated. You lied to me too, remember? All those stories about administrative consulting? I believed you. I believed we were just two normal people building a normal life. He was right. We'd both been lying. Both been living double lives, each unaware of the other's truth. The burner phone, I said. Why did you leave it where I could find it? Something flickered across his face. Calculation. Decision. Because I wanted you to find it. The operation was compromised. Someone on my team was leaking information. I couldn't trust my handlers anymore. But I knew if you found that phone, if you saw those messages, you'd do exactly what you did. You'd report it. You'd trigger an investigation that would force everyone into the light. I stared at him. You used me? I trusted you. There's a difference. He leaned forward as far as the handcuffs allowed. Sarah, I'm sorry. For all of it. For the lies. For dragging you into this. But everything else was real. Our marriage. Our life. What I feel for you. That's all real. I wanted to believe him. God, I wanted to believe him so badly. But how could I trust anything anymore? How could I separate truth from tradecraft, love from operation? What happens now? I asked Morrison. Now, we sort through the mess. Figure out what's salvageable from both operations. There will be debriefings, reviews, possibly congressional oversight. She looked at both of us. And you two will need to decide what happens with your marriage. Though I strongly recommend extended leave for both of you. Agreed, I said quietly. Marcus's eyes found mine. Sarah, please. We can get through this. We can figure this out. I don't know if we can, I said honestly. I don't even know who you are, who we are together. We're the same people we were yesterday, just with more truth between us. That's just it, Marcus. We're not the same people. We never were. We were both playing roles, living lies, and I don't know how to separate what was real from what was cover. Morrison cleared her throat. I'll give you two a moment. But just a moment. She stepped outside, leaving us alone. Marcus and I looked at each other across the table, an ocean of secrets between us. I love you, he said simply. That's the only truth that matters. Is it? I asked. Because right now, that truth feels like the smallest piece of a very big lie. Then let me prove it to you. Let me show you that underneath all the operations and cover stories, there's an us worth saving. I thought about the life we'd built, the moments that had felt real, the laughter and tears and ordinary days that had seemed so precious. Had any of it been real? Or had we both been so deep in our covers that we'd lost sight of who we actually were? I need time, I said finally. Time to process this. Time to figure out who I am when I'm not playing a role. How much time? I don't know. Maybe a lot. Pain flashed across his face, but he nodded. I'll wait, however long it takes. Morrison opened the door. Time's up. I stood, looked at Marcus one last time. He looked smaller somehow, diminished by the handcuffs and the harsh fluorescent lights and the weight of everything we'd lost. Goodbye, Marcus. Not goodbye, he said. See you later. I walked out without responding. 3 weeks later, I sat in my new apartment. I couldn't stay in the house, couldn't sleep in the bed where I'd found the phone, and read through the final investigation report. Marcus had been cleared of all criminal charges. His intelligence had led to 15 arrests and the seizure of over $40 million in assets. Operation Lighthouse was being hailed as one of the most successful long-term infiltrations in Bureau history, and Marcus Chen was being offered a full-time position as a special agent, if he wanted it. As for me, I'd been cleared of wrongdoing but placed on administrative leave pending review. The official position was that I'd acted appropriately once I'd discovered the phone. The unofficial position was that my judgment had been compromised and I was a liability. I'd probably never lead another major investigation. My phone buzzed, a text from Marcus, his first attempt at contact since the interview. The divorce papers came. I'm not signing them, not because I want to trap you or force anything, but because I still believe in us. I still believe that what we had was real. Take all the time you need. I'll be here. I set the phone down and looked out the window at the city lights. Somewhere out there, my husband, ex-husband? I didn't even know what to call him, was living his life, waiting for me to decide what came next. The thing was, I'd spent 3 weeks trying to separate truth from lies, real from cover. And the more I thought about it, the more I realized something important. It didn't matter. Yes, we'd both been lying. Yes, we'd both been living double lives. But the person I'd fallen in love with, the man who cried at Pixar movies and left his socks on the floor and made terrible coffee, that person was real. The life we'd built, even on a foundation of secrets, had been real. Maybe we couldn't go back to who we were, but maybe we could figure out who we were now, together, with the truth finally between us. I picked up my phone and typed out a response. Coffee? Tomorrow morning. That same shop where we met. His reply came seconds later. I'll be there. No secrets this time. No secrets, I agreed. I didn't know if we could salvage our marriage, didn't know if love could survive the kind of betrayal we'd endured, but I knew we couldn't figure it out by staying apart. The next morning, I walked into the coffee shop near American University. Marcus was already there, sitting at a table by the window, 2 cups of coffee in front of him. He looked up when I entered, and his smile was tentative but genuine. I sat down across from him. For a moment, we just looked at each other, really looked, without the masks and the lies and the roles we'd been playing. "Hi," he said. "Hi," I replied, and for the first time in 3 years, it felt like we were actually meeting, actually seeing each other for who we truly were. "So," Marcus said, pushing one of the coffee cups toward me, "tell me about yourself. What do you really do for a living?" I laughed, and it felt good. Felt real. "I'm an FBI agent, Financial Crimes Division. And you?" "Physics teacher. Also, apparently, deep cover asset for classified operations." "Interesting resume." "Yours too." We sat there, sipping coffee, starting the hard work of rebuilding something from the wreckage. I didn't know if we'd make it. Didn't know if trust could be restored, if love could survive everything we'd been through. But as I watched him smile at me across the table, I thought maybe, just maybe, we had a chance. Because the truth was finally out. And whatever happened next, at least it would be real. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.